All right, guys, in this podcast, we're going to go over how to progress in the sport of snowmobiling and why you might suck. Some of you are beginners, some of you are intermediate, and you're having a struggle learning to snowmobile. We're going to dive right in and teach you a different way to look at the sport and help you progress.
Look, I don't want to talk. How you try and press the kid and really you was soft. All you know is capping, homie.
All right, guys, welcome back to yet another episode of the infamous Let's Assess podcast. We're here today with AJ, and we're going to be going over kind of just a different way to look at the progression of snowmobiling. So many content creators are talking about how to side hill, how to, do reentries and all that. We want to give you a broad overview, and I think this will help a lot of you get considerably better because some of you don't even know where to start. Maybe you don't have a buddy that's good at snowmobiling. So we're going to take you through the phases. We have 5 phases that I believe that riders will go through, and we're going to break it down what you need to do in each phase to be able to maximize it and then go on to the next and just progress and do it safely. So welcome on, AJ.
What's up, guys? Yeah, we're going to get started in here with the first phase.
Yeah, so the first phase, I call it like basically learning your snowmobile. So many of us grab snowmobiles off the dealership and then we watch content and we think we can go to the mountains, and you can't. You're probably not ready. You're probably not ready to pull reentries. You're probably not ready to hit big jumps. So the first phase is flat ground or the trails. So go with someone that you know, kind of learn the snowmobile, learn throttle control, learn the brake, and just get familiar with being on a snowmobile. This is a huge step. And once you go to trails, and in this podcast, we're talking about mountain riding, not necessarily trail riding or racing or anything. Once you go to trails, start learning the trail systems and learning it. This is a big part of phase 1 is safety. Learn safety, learn the gear that you should be wearing to keep you safe. And this phase is basically structured around getting familiar with your sled.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that things that will help you. There's map systems out there. Onyx Off-Road is a great one that I use in the wintertime. It has your avalanche safety stuff in there. It'll give you a forecast for the area where you're riding. It puts all the trails that are groomed and a lot of the non-groomed ones as well. And you can plan different routes. And as you progress through that, you can go for maybe the groomed trail and then find maybe logging roads or other roads that split off of that and ride those. It might be a little bit, it'll be flatter ground, but it's going to give you a little bit more deep snow. You're going to have to learn balance. So that's something that you can use as a mapping system. Onyx is what I use. You don't have to use Onyx. And the biggest thing is just be sure and use like a flat ground area. Start learning your balance. Learn what the sled's going to do in pitches. Try, a lot of people think, oh, you get on a snowmobile, you sit down, you push the throttle, and you grab the brake. Start standing up when you're riding down the trail. Stand up and get your muscles used to being standing. I would say a large majority of the time that you spend on a snowmobile in the backcountry, once we get to those later phases, is you're standing up. So start training yourself to be standing up on the snowmobile in those flat ground situations, and that's going to give you a lot more control. Now, obviously, when you go into a corner and stuff like that, you want to be leaning the way that you're going. So
when it comes to trail riding.
Yes. So this is going to be flat ground, trail riding, hard surfaces, not in powder. You are going to, if you're coming into a corner and you're going to be turning left, you are going to lean your body to the left with the snowmobile. If you're going right, you're going to lean your body to the right with the snowmobile as well. And then when you come out of the corner, that's when you can transition yourself to standing and then be in, like an elbows up position, elbows over knees, et cetera, to where you're in a more of an attack in case you hit bumps or anything like that. And that's going to help you keep control of the snowmobile.
Yep. So overall, we want to get through these phases somewhat quick. And before I go any further, we have some credibility here. AJ has been a backcountry guide for a big company for 3 years now.
3 years, yep.
And I have kind of the polar opposite approach. He kind of grew up in a snowmobile family. I didn't. As a lot of you know, I kind of had to teach myself everything on my own. And what that did was realize what a lot of you are going through. Maybe your dad wasn't a great snowmobiler or whatever. And so these are the phases that, looking back, I had to go through, and maybe I didn't do them in order, and that's why it took me so long to understand mountain riding. So overall, phase 1, we want to learn throttle control, brake control, and get familiar with the backcountry. Just kind of understand. You're going to see other riders riding. That's good for you. You're going to learn more. And in this first phase, I think something that's super important that I'll touch on real quick, watch other riders' videos online, learn from them. Watching GoPro content is a really good way to learn when it comes to what are they doing with the throttle, what are they doing with the brake, what are they doing with their body position and skis, all that stuff. You got to think you're on a 500-pound or 400-pound machine, and that you're not going to be able to manhandle it. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of that, but I just want to go over kind of throttle control, brake control, learn the backcountry, and backcountry safety.
Yep, and some of that stuff you're not going to want to. You don't want to start with a bad habit. Not that it's necessarily really a bad habit, but some of those things that Brent's probably having to like train himself through now versus if he could have started the correct way. So when he says throttle control, make sure you have your throttle adjusted in the right spot to where you can use your entire thumb and have full control of that throttle. Brake, make sure the brake is adjusted to a spot where you can actually reach the brake at all times, standing, sitting, on the bars, back, lean back, whatever. Make sure you can get that brake lever. And then in that, create the habit of keeping a finger on the brake at all times. That's going to be crucial in your next years and your next phases. Yep. So get familiar with the sled, but get familiar with it. That's why I'm saying standing. Make sure all your controls are in the right places, because those are really hard habits to break. Feet placement is one of those things that obviously is going to come as a much more important thing later. But if you're in the general middle of the snowmobile, the middle of the running board, your weight's going to be a lot more balanced on the snowmobile. So that'll be something that helps you keep control.
Yeah. And a lot of this, you're just going to start, and the keyword is start learning how all of this works in phase 1. So moving on to phase 2, I call this phase close to the trail. So now we're technically somewhat mountain riding. We're going into the mountains. We're on a groomed trail. That's where you need to be if you're beginning. Lower your risk and just start there. You don't want to get carried away and get in a position where you're staying the night somewhere and you have no idea what you're doing because you're stuck.
And
so
when he says minimize the risk, a couple of those things to do, and something that really sticks out to my head as a kid with my dad taught me, with older snowmobiles, they never would play below the trail. But for people that are getting started into it, when you go up to a hill and you're on the trail and you're like, oh, I'm just going to dive off this way, you have to get back to the trail to get out. So instead of going down, always go uphill. And if you think about that, you can play as far up as you want, and you can, like, literally gravity is going to take you downhill. So, and if you're going downhill and you get stuck in a drainage, you can always cut trees out of the way or whatever to get down to the trail again. If you have to get yourself back up and you're not capable, that's when you're going to end up, spending one of those nights out there, and that's not fun.
Facing frostbite and death. So that sounds harsh, but that's the truth.
But it's the truth. Yeah. It's a harsh reality because it's something that does happen, and a lot of people do end up spending the night out there. I've been lucky that I haven't had to ever, but it definitely is one of those things that I'm sure in our career of this, we will at some point.
Yeah. So close to trail, guys, what I mean by that, he kind of touched on it. Start getting off the trail once you're comfortable with the trail, and start just feeling what the snowmobile does in deep snow. So I don't want to get into too much specifics. We can make other videos on that. But for example, what you'll realize is on the trail, if you want to go left, you're going to turn the handlebars and point the skis left and lean. When you're in deep snow, it's the exact opposite. So you're going to counter steer. So if you want to turn left, you're going to steer your handlebars right, and that's going to dip you left. Just start getting familiar with it. But the biggest thing in this phase is start getting familiar with it, with minimizing your risk. That's the biggest thing to me, because when we were starting to snowmobile, is exactly what AJ's talking about. We'd go down in a hole. I mean, we were watching Chris Brandt ride, and we're like, this can't be that hard. We go down in a hole, and we could never get back up until somebody came by us, and we'd stand on the trail and flag them down and have them help us get out. So don't do that, because that can turn bad. So play on the uphill of the trail, and worst case scenario, if you get stuck, you could flip your sled all the way back down to the trail.
If you had to, absolutely.
If you had to.
Yep.
Or if it's broke down or whatever.
And that's, in that situation, say, because if you're getting into it, you're maybe not riding the best equipment, anything like that. It just minimizes the anything to go wrong. If anything goes wrong, not that it can't with new stuff or anything like that, but if you have a way to get to a trail, it's going to minimize your danger. I still to this day keep that in my back pocket, knowing how the mountain lays. I will drop off a lot of places knowing that there's an exit out the bottom through a creek bottom, even if I have to go clear out to the highway or whatever. I know there's an exit before I drop anything. But to get back to their phase 2, what Brent's talking about on getting familiar how it feels in the deep snow, you're going to notice it's a light feeling. You're floating on that snow now because you got to keep your momentum or else you're going to get stuck. So when you keep that momentum, you're going to be riding on that track and your skis are going to be light in the air. So when you're on that, what you're going to want to practice is just lift one foot up off the running board and then put it back and then do the other side. And what that's going to do is that's going to create the side to side motion. And you're going to notice how much effect just your body weight on each side of the snowmobile is going to give you. And that's something that's going to help you get familiar in the deep snow. And that's going to be something that you're going to use to progress forward.
Right. So now, in some of these phases are going to take longer than others. For example, maybe you go out and you ride every single day for a week. You're a student, you're off for Christmas, and you ride every day and you're comfortable with the trail. You're ready to start getting off the trail a little bit. Or maybe you're a motocross guy and you can progress a little bit faster. All of that is different for people, but this is the general layout that I think will really help you not be frustrated in learning the sport. So third phase.
1 second. And something that's you're gonna really find out in phase 2 is when you start getting stuck and you start fighting that deep snow, how tired and fatigued you get. You're going to want to limit your days in that situation because you could really turn it not fun for you really fast. I take a lot of clients out that don't understand that if it's an 8-hour day that they paid for to ride, they want to ride for all 8 hours, but they go so hard in the first 4 hours that they're smoked and they can't ride the rest of the day.
And then elevation and the cold and all of that.
There's so many factors that go into that. As soon as you get off the trail, be aware of that and don't make it not fun for yourself. So dabble with it for 2 hours at a time and then go have a trail ride or something like that. Keep it fun for yourself.
Yep.
All right.
Third phase, you could argue this could become or could come before the second phase, but I don't think so. So I think you need to dabble off the trail, second phase, kind of get back on, just feel what it feels like. The third phase, I think for most people, this is probably the hardest phase.
Absolutely.
And that is learning to side hill. So for those of you who don't know, we're talking about turning the snowmobile off trail. You're going to have one ski in the air. Whether you're going left or right, there's one ski in the air. That is what side hilling is. And what I want you guys to do is say you're riding down the trail and you're getting kind of comfortable. Find a flat meadow with no trees, or maybe you have some land by your house or whatever, and start working on side hilling, getting the sled up on one ski. And I don't want to get into the specifics of it. I mean, we could shoot a 5-hour topic on that or a 5-hour video on that, but I have a video on the channel on how to side hill a snowmobile that goes over that. There's a ton of videos out there that'll teach you how to side hill, but and then in third phase, there's levels to side hilling. So there's, I don't know about you. Are you comfortable, or maybe a couple years ago, you were more comfortable going like maybe left?
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, it was left.
Yeah,
I think for most right-handed people, it's left.
Left hand's definitely the easiest for most people.
Yeah. So start left and learn kind of what that snowmobile needs to get up on edge. And that way you can side hill. And that's how you turn in deep snow. You're not flat and turning it like a four-wheeler. You're on one ski. So learn on flat ground first.
You have to be able to go straight and on edge. So,
right.
And if you add deep snow, or not even deep snow, but if you add powder to that scenario, it's going to help you keep that track on its edge and give you that tilt that you need. So you'll be able to do that in a straight line. Then you want to practice that. And that's going to kind of like, this is third phase piggybacks off the second phase really well, because when you're getting off the trail, you're going to be in most likely a meadow, and you're going to want to not just like go blasting through the meadow after, a few days of doing that. You're going to want to start adding something into that to make it more fun. And that's where you're going to start screwing around with the, counter steer, and you're going to start leaning and balancing and trying to get it to go on its side. And then that's what's going to push you into the third phase. And then those are the skills that you learn on flat ground that's going to move you into being able to do it on a hillside. Something I suggest to some people, if you're pretty experienced on the trail and you're comfortable, try to ride it on one ski in the track on the trail. If you can hold an edge on hard ground, you can hold an edge on
very easily
soft ground.
and soft ground.
So once you get the feel of what the snowmobile is doing, try to do it on the trail and see if, obviously if you're not comfortable, don't do it because you'll wreck and the trail's hard and it'll break plastic and stuff. But, it's get to the point where you're comfortable having that sled in that situation and your body can adjust to it. And then you'll be able to, whether the snow conditions are hard spring snow or light fluffy powder, you'll enjoy the powder more because it's less muscle fatigue, I feel like. But that's a good way to get yourself ready for the side hilling.
Yeah.
Now,
so I think there's 3 phases of phase 3.
correct.
I think there's the first thing, and you'll figure this out very, very quickly. Flat ground is like a 2 out of 10 toughness scale. As soon as you introduce any sort of slope, and I don't mean like a cliff, I mean like just a tiny bit of slope, it's going to become considerably harder. So I say you go flat ground, no trees, slope, small slope, no trees, steeper slope, no trees, and then you start getting into the trees. That's what I say.
I couldn't agree more with you. That hit the nail on the head. Start with a slope that definitely has no obstacles on it to start with. And you're going to want to
wear a tether, for God's sake.
Yeah.
That's what I wouldn't do.
Yeah, because once your sled, so if you fall off and the sled comes to its skis and then it'll turn itself downhill and then it'll just away from you. And then you're wore out and it ruins your day too. You got to walk to the thing after it goes half a mile down the hill.
And wrecks into a tree.
Yeah, and hits a tree and then you got damage and then you got to get it back to the trail somehow. But nonetheless, when you're on those mellow hills, that's going to just help you keep that edge a little bit more. You're going to think that like, oh, I'm falling downhill. And you're going to get that a couple times. You're going to be going, and then you're going to tip and go downhill. Oh man, you'll get frustrated doing that. But that is where you have to learn the skills on that little hill and be able to completely side hill across it in control. In control is not using more speed. In control is being able to use the same speed across the entire hill to get across it. That's using the brake and the gas and keeping yourself on that edge to maintain all the way across it. And then as you add steeper hills, you're actually going to find it's going to get easier and easier to maintain a speed because the hill's fighting you as you're doing it because it's wanting to constantly wash and go uphill. And that's going to help keep your speed more in control. So little hill, everything is a progression to teach you the skills that you're going to need in a more difficult terrain. And then, like he says, adding trees later. That's going to be a couple days after learning how to
or a couple, or maybe a couple years.
Everybody's different. It could take a lot longer. But when you add, okay, I'm going across this side hill, but now I need to go up or down, and then oh my goodness, now I got to go up and then down and then back up again real fast. Those are the progress that you're going to have to make in that side hill and being comfortable before you put yourself in that situation, or it could get expensive.
Yeah, I think the first 2 phases, the trail or flat fields or whatever you have to ride as phase 1, phase 2, getting off but staying close. I think those could be done in
those can be the same
half
year.
A season. Yeah, half a season. And then third, like the side hilling thing, I think for most people, it's 1 to 3 years of doing it until you're actually proficient at side hilling.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. So side hilling, this podcast is kind of making me think we could really dive into these if you guys want. So leave in the comments what you guys want to hear more in detail. We don't want to go super into detail in this video. So 4th phase, you've learned to side hill proficiently in slopes or flat places. And if you didn't know, mountains don't have a whole ton of flat places. It seems like everything has somewhat of a slope on it,
it's
especially out in
for
Colorado. Yeah.
Yep.
So 4th phase, this is where I consider you are actually mountain riding. And I don't mean riding in the mountains. I mean like you're stylized to be a mountain rider.
Backcountry.
Yeah, backcountry. You're learning backcountry safety. You're kind of learning to navigate the mountains better because there's storms and whiteout blizzards and everything like that. And this is where you really take it from I can side hill on certain things to them progressing and saying, I'm confident unless it's a weird situation, like a cliff or something like that, I am confident that I can ride in any terrain that I'm put in. That's what I think fourth phase is. It's exactly what AJ's saying, being able to, dip and dive through trees, uphill, downhill, weird side hill. All that stuff is going to come in the fourth phase, and it takes a while. This takes a long time. I think this is I would say 2 to 3 years of doing this until you're actually, and it depends who you are and who you're riding with. I would say that this phase takes a little bit longer, like side hilling. But the goal of fourth phase, in my opinion, is you can go anywhere, you can navigate anywhere within reason, and you feel safe on the mountain.
Yep, for sure. I couldn't agree more. A couple things on that he's saying there, like being comfortable in the situation. And this is the one you're going to notice, there's a defining moment between you're going from third phase to fourth phase, is not only can you side hill on the left side, but you can side hill on the right side.
Bingo.
You can go uphill. You can go downhill. You can get back to where, you can go somewhere and then come back out of that in the same.
And it doesn't scare you.
To
me, I'd be in a spot, when I was a couple years in, and I'd be like, dude, I literally don't know if I can get out of this spot. I'm freaked out. I'm uncomfortable. There's weather coming in. I don't know what to do.
Yep.
That's where I feel like you might enter the fourth phase like that. But by the time you're out of it, you are I can go anywhere. I know how to navigate a snowmobile. I know how to make it do what I want it to do. And I think that's what takes you into the fourth phase.
Yep. There's nothing that prepares you for the fourth phase except for experience being in 1 through 3.
Right.
If you spend the time going through 1 through 3, you are going to learn the mountain. You're going to be comfortable in the situation. This isn't something that overnight you can become a fourth phase rider, because the amount of experience you gain from snow conditions. Oh, in the afternoon, the snow's going to get rock hard and I'm going to be able to get out of places. In the morning time, it's going to be sugar. I can't get anywhere.
Right.
There are going to be things that you learn and educate yourself through that's going to make you into that mountain riding, backcountry riding person. And you're not even going to know you make that phase until all of a sudden it's going to dawn on you that you're there. But
yeah, even something as simple as, oh my God, my belt just blew. I'm fine. I've done this. I know what to do. I know how to change it. All this comes with progression. And going back to his thing of 1 through 3, this, I feel like people try to enter the industry, or the sport rather, at phase 4. They watch Chris Brandt, they watch all these guys. I mean, I'm name dropping Chris Brandt, but all the guys, all the Instagrammers. I mean, we've had even people watch us and they're like, bro, just bought my first sled, bro. My goal is to hit at least a bow tie by the end of the season. I'm like, dude, all the power to you, buddy. I hope you get it, but you're not going to get it. And if you do, it's going to be a fluke. There's no way you're going to be able to navigate through trees and pull a bow tie in between 2 trees in 1 year of riding, unless you have a background of something else. So do you have anything you want to add real quick and forth?
I think the big part of it is just the safety aspect, and you touched on it.
Yeah, it's huge.
Something in that is you have to be aware of all these things, because at this point, this is when things can go sideways really fast. You are getting deep into the backcountry. There's nobody riding by you very often. It's you guys
as in another group.
You
need to be with somebody in every phase.
Yes, you have to have somebody with you at all times in snowmobiling, because you never know when anything can go bad.
Yeah, let me tell a story real quick.
Okay,
Here,
yeah.
no, you finish.
So in that though, just know, be confident in yourself that you can go somewhere and get back to the trail and then get down to your truck. Navigation is going to be a big part of that. Knowing where you're at, comfortable, because if a snowstorm rolls in, be able to get back out of that.
Because everything looks the exact same in a whiteout blizzard.
Yep.
Everything looks like trees with some snow on it, and you can be going in circles for 3 hours and not even know it.
Yep. And then being comfortable in that situation to where, okay, on a blue, sunny bluebird day, I can get myself into a real predicament. But what if a storm blows in that afternoon and you're not able to get out of that because you can't see and your skills aren't good enough, your vision is such an important part of your skills, and you take that for granted. I've seen a lot of people that can be very good riders on a Bluebird day. You take their vision away and they can't ride for anything because they can't see the terrain. They can't read the terrain. They don't know what they're doing, and they don't have the skills to just follow what the sled's doing under them. And that's something that only comes with time, is knowing what your machine does under you. And that's what's going to make you comfortable in the terrain itself.
Yeah, I think like a good comparison to snowmobiling is like when it's a Bluebird day, it's like when you're like the pilots, like that fly planes, there's a level of pilots that can fly in the day, and then there's a level of pilots that can fly at night. And obviously at night you can't see anything, so you're going solely off instruments and maps and everything like that, GPS. That's what you want to get to, where if you can't see out and know which way the peak that you came from is, you're okay on maps, or, you know, however you want to do it. For us, it's maps and ride command on Polaris. But okay, I'm rambling. Oh, let me tell you one story. I'll make this really quick. One day I was out, and at this point I was a decent rider, and I was trying to do a re-entry, and the shit hit the fan. The sled comes back on me, and I fall in the trench, and the sled comes and buries me. It pushes snow into my face. Every time I'd move trying to get out from under the sled, more and more and more snow would come into my face, and I could not breathe. I could not get my helmet off. And so I was blacked out under the snow, completely out, like was freaking out until I blacked out. And here comes my buddies coming up the hill to undig me and help me. But I am 100,000,000% sure if they weren't there, I would have been dead on the side of that hill. There's nothing I could do. I couldn't breathe, couldn't get out from under the snowmobile. I'm in like a 4-foot trench. It was bad. So always ride with someone. I don't care how good you are. You need to be with somebody.
I couldn't agree more. I've even bitten mousetrap myself. I was riding with my wife. We weren't married at the time. It was her first winter, I think, riding, and I had her on the trail. I popped up into a little park, and it was on the side of a hill, so I did a re-entry, and it came back on top of me, and I fell in the trench, and the sled was on top of me, and I don't know who was looking over me or what, but miraculously, like, I laid there for like 3 minutes, and I didn't have snow on me, and I wasn't knocked out or anything, but I couldn't move, and I was trapped, and a snow bike came through the trees out of
dang
nowhere.
snow bikes, man.
I know, they get you every time, but
I know.
I'll never forget it, because I mean, I was just laying there, and he was like, pulled up, he's like, dude, do you need help? And I was like, that'd be great. And
I'm all right.
Yeah. And he like got me pulled out, and I mean, in time, my wife would have probably like walked back and went up there, but like she wasn't capable of riding up to that point.
But
and
what
I
if you couldn't breathe?
But if it would have been any worse, if I would have been like under the snowball or snow on me, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now for sure.
Yeah, that's scary.
It's one of those things. Make sure that you can either do what you're doing make sure you are in vision of somebody in your group.
Yeah. Okay, 5th phase, final phase. In my opinion, this is where it gets to be the most fun. 4th phase is really rewarding. You're starting to be like, dang, you're starting to build your confidence. I can go anywhere I want. I understand how the snowmobile thing's working. 5th phase is the most fun for me, and that is like advancing into your preferred style. And what I mean by that is like, if you absolutely love riding technical trees, holy Lord, technical trees, you get absolutely dialed on technical trees. If you're a guy that wants to start jumping, you start jumping. If you're a guy that wants to do technical like re-entries, bow ties, hop over, stuff like that, shoot climbing, all these different kind of styles of riding, that's where you kind of like pick your lane. If you love one more than the other, you can kind of get better and better and better at that. Or maybe you just ride whatever and have a lot of fun doing it. That's kind of what we do. But I would say we are specialized in definitely certain things. And I think this is where you kind of take it from like, I can get around the mountain to like, this is a blast. I can go up between 2 trees, bow tie, pull this line, hop over, and just do a bunch of crazy different stuff that is just a ton of fun to do.
Yep. And I think in time, like, you're going to hone yourself in on one of those topics essentially. And then in time, you're going to start putting together resume, as if you would say, about like being able to do all that stuff. And when you can put all that stuff together, you're going to be able to just be an all around advanced rider. But for the most part, like once you get out of that 4th phase to the 5th phase, you have to start focusing on each one. You're not going to be able to be the best jumper. You're not going to be able to be the best technical tree rider unless you actually learn the art of doing that. You have to focus on doing each one and learn the do's and the don'ts and the technicalities of doing that type of riding. And that's gonna be what teaches you and make you an all around better rider in general, I think.
Yep. And that's where, in my opinion, it really never ends, because you can always be better at everything. But phase 5 is kind of where you're still progressing, but it's kind of not in a sense of like getting around the mountain. It's in the sense of like making the mountain your playground type of thing. So that's kind of what I think of as the 5 phases. If you guys have any questions, concerns, want more information on anything, leave it in the comments. We'll shoot another pod on it. We're going to be coming out with instructional stuff on the snow this winter. So subscribe if you haven't already. We appreciate you all. And
pray for snow.
Yeah, pray for snow. But guys, take these 5 phases seriously. I truly believe that if I would have known these 5 phases, instead of watching how to get better at snowmobiling, and they're teaching you like how to add more power to your sled and how to side hill and all this stuff, I think just this overall type of this is what you need to do to progress, and then worry about the X's and O's along the way of each phase. I think that's the way you should look at it, because that's what I didn't have. I just kind of was thrown into it, and in return had to go back steps and actually learn. There was holes in my riding. So I think this is what you should do to minimize risk, have a ton of fun, and just get good at letting your freaking eat.
Exactly. And that's, it's building your personal skill is something that you're never going to not want to put the value in. If you don't put the value into your own development and training yourself to be in that situation, you could put all the money in the world of the sled. You could have the fanciest sled, you could have the fastest sled, most horsepower, whatever. But if you do not put in the work of learning the actual skills, it's just a waste of money. You won't be able to use it. So
100%.
If you actually take the time, instead of putting $5,000 into pipes and motor work and all that, put $5,000 into going riding and go ride. And that is going to benefit you more than anything. Just seat time. So
seat time.
Cool.
All right, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Well, if you want to see anything particular, like I said, leave it in the comments. We'll shoot more. We'll shoot some instructional stuff. There's stuff all over YouTube, though. So if you have questions about it, just search it in YouTube. So thanks, guys, for watching. We love all of you who subscribe. Thank you, guys. Peace out.
Thank you. See ya.
Till next week, we're out.